Okay, so this video is going to focus on the conditions under which price discrimination can occur. At some level, I think all businesses are going to want to price discriminate if they can, but very few are going to be able to. And a part of that is because of the forces that lie behind the law of one price. Consumers want to buy for the lowest price possible. And so they will shop around, and as we said before in describing the law of one price, it's unlikely that one seller is going to be able to sell gasoline for $5 a gallon when all the stations around them are selling it for $3 a gallon. Who's going to buy? No self-interested consumer is going to choose to buy gas for a much higher price when they could buy it cheaper elsewhere. So that consumers want to buy at the best price available. So there's going to have to be some conditions under which price, which have to be met for businesses to succeed in price discriminating. And we have two here that we want to talk about. One is that you need to be able to distinguish the buyers based on their differences in demand. You must be able, at some level, you want to be able to separate buyers out into the high demand buyers and the low demand buyers, or the people with a very inelastic demand versus elastic demand. And you have to be able to do that relatively easily. Think of the case of in a market where there are no posted prices. You have people selling stuff, and they haggle over every item when customers come in. That takes a lot of time and effort to sell goods. So posting prices arose in the 1800s because it helped save costs for firms. So you need to be able to distinguish the high demand and low demand buyers fairly easily. If it takes too much time or effort to do that, then price discrimination is not going to end up being profitable. And then you also are going to have to be able to prevent resale. Because what you're trying to do is come up with some way to figure out who's willing to pay more for this good and charge them more for it, and who's only willing to pay less for a good and charge them a lower price. Because if you try to charge everybody the high price, you'll lose out on the sales to the people with low demand, and you won't sell as much. If you charge everyone the low price, then you make less revenue. So you're trying to find some group of customers who would be willing to pay a higher price, and you're trying to get them to actually pay that. When you're for instance, if you're trying to charge one group $15 for movie tickets and another group $10 for movie tickets, well, you have to have some way to actually make sure that the people you're trying to charge a $15 price for don't go and buy tickets for $10. And then you also have to prevent that person who you're trying to charge $15 for from having somebody who can buy, who you're going to sell the movie ticket to for $10, buy an extra ticket for $10, and then give it to the person you were trying to sell it to for $15 to. So you have to be able to distinguish the buyers and make sure that the buyers pay the price you're trying to charge them, especially that the people you're trying to charge a higher price for, make them willing to actually purchase at the higher price as opposed to try to get around and buy at the lower price, or have somebody buy at the lower price for them and then just buy it from them instead of the merchant or the business. So here's one example that worked for a lot of years. Airlines used to offer lower fares for people who would book their travel at least 2 weeks in advance. And then they would also offer lower fares for people who would be willing to stay over a weekend, especially a Saturday night. And what they were trying to do there is distinguish leisure travelers from business travelers, on the grounds that business travelers are likely have a higher willingness to pay or more inelastic demands for flights. If you need to fly across the country to meet with somebody to try to sell them, a $500,000 account, then you're not going to worry about paying an extra $500 perhaps for that ticket. you're going to be a high demander. Business demanders, business travelers are going to be high demanders. But you can't just simply ask, if you're an airline, so you can't simply ask somebody when they want to book a ticket, are you traveling for business or pleasure? Oh, you're traveling for business. Okay, we'll charge you $2,000 for this flight. And if you said you're traveling for pleasure, well, we'll just charge you $800 instead. Because everybody's going to say, oh, I'm not traveling on business. You won't serve any business travelers if you ask people and you simply let them say what they want. But airlines were able to construct some conditions under which would favor the leisure traveler. So if you're traveling on a vacation, you're making vacation plans. Well, you have to schedule your vacation at work, and you're going to plan where you're going to go to, and you're likely doing that in advance. And you know when you schedule your vacation more than a couple of weeks in advance. And so you can book ahead and get and you'd be willing to book ahead. And you particularly would be willing to book ahead because you're going to save money. And similarly, if you're staying over on a Saturday night, well, if you're going somewhere, it's likely the case, maybe you're going to go for the weekend. If you're going to on a just holiday travel, you can stay over the weekend or extend your stay. But if you're traveling for a business, well, it's on Friday, it's the end of the work week, you've been traveling away from your family all week, you want to get home. And so business travelers are going to demand, they're going to want to fly home after the end of their business trip at the end of the work week. And so, the businesses are going to accommodate their salespeople who are traveling, or the other executives, whoever they have who are traveling, to let them get home to be with their families. So again, they would not be willing to, after spending all week traveling for business, spend an extra couple of days, a Saturday and Sunday there, instead of flying back on Friday. So you had a setup there where, business travelers, because business travelers might not be able to book 2 weeks in advance, because you get an opportunity to go meet with someone to try to sell them, to sell your merchandise to them. You might get that a couple of days in advance, a week in advance, and you're not going to say, well, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to come out for 3 weeks because we have to book ahead and get a lower fare. You don't know, a lot of times your travel comes up with very little advance planning, and because you have a higher demand, you're willing to pay more. So that would be a way in which the airlines constructed some conditions there for purchases that allowed price discrimination to work. They were charging more for business customers, but they were able to gear these terms for purchasing tickets so that leisure travelers would abide by them, but business travelers would find it very inconvenient to try to abide by them, and so they would be willing to instead pay a higher price to travel on demand. Well, the other thing you had to do is prevent resale. And long before we were concerned about terrorists getting on planes, airlines required a picture ID to board a flight. And they did it not because of national security concerns, but because they wanted to issue a ticket to a specific traveler in their name. They had to tell the airline the name of the traveler, and then they would require a photo ID. Why is that? Well, because you don't want businesses to just, or you don't want a business to arise just going online and just going in and purchasing seats on different planes flying across the country on the ground on the presumption that businesses are going to want to get them. So you have to make the traveler say the name of the person traveling and then show photo ID. And it's going to make it pretty hard to resell the ticket for somebody to purchase it under their name and then give it to somebody else, because then that other person would have to have the ID in their wrong name, and have a good enough fake ID that it would have like a fake ID with their picture and somebody else's name. So you would make it pretty difficult to prevent resale. So, but again, that's the other thing you'd have to do, because you're not going to succeed in getting people to pay, say, $2,000 for an airline ticket when others are buying it for $1,000, because there's such a strong incentive for the person you're trying to charge at $2,000 to ask somebody who could purchase it for $1,000 to buy it for them. So you've got to prevent resale. You have these two conditions. They're pretty hard to meet, and so it's pretty rare. The conditions are kind of hard for price discrimination to be met, and for it to persist in the market. But these are the conditions you need to have.